The thunder rolled across the Montana sky as Olivia Lawson stared at the leaking ceiling of her farmhouse, watching droplets form ominous dark circles on the wooden floorboards. The life she'd imagined when inheriting her uncle's property hadn't included countless rainstorms and a deteriorating roof. But here she was in 1878, barely 6 months into her new life in Pinewood Creek, already questioning her decision to leave Boston behind. A sudden clatter from above made her jump. Olivia hurried to the porch, lifting her skirts to avoid the muddy puddles forming on her land. Looking up, she saw him again, the cowboy from the neighboring ranch, perched precariously on her slippery roof, hammering away at the loose shingles as rain pounded around him. "Mr. Vance?" she called out, cupping her hands around her mouth to be heard over the storm. "You're going to break your neck." Ethan Vance glanced down, rainwater streaming from the brim of his worn Stetson. His soaked shirt clung to his broad shoulders as he carefully navigated the steep pitch of the roof. "Miss Lawson," he replied with a nod, continuing his work. "Roof won't fix itself." "This is the 3rd time this month. I didn't ask you to do this." He hammered another nail, securing a wayward shingle. "I'll keep you dry if it kills me," he called back, his voice barely audible above the thunder. Olivia shook her head in frustration. Since arriving in Pinewood Creek, Ethan Vance had been a persistent, if unwelcome, presence. The tall, broad-shouldered rancher with eyes the color of weathered denim had appointed himself her unofficial guardian, appearing at her property whenever something needed fixing. She hadn't asked for his help, didn't want it, and certainly didn't need another man telling her what she could or couldn't handle. "Mr. Vance, please come down this instant. We can discuss this like civilized people." The rain intensified, and Olivia watched in horror as Ethan's boots slipped on the wet shingles. He slid several feet before catching himself at the edge of the roof, his hammer tumbling to the ground with a thud. "That's it!" Olivia marched back inside, grabbed her shotgun more for show than actual threat, and returned to the porch. "Ethan Vance, you get off my roof right now, or so help me, You'll what?" His voice carried a hint of amusement as he carefully made his way to the ladder. "Shoot the only man willing to fix your roof for free?" As he descended, Olivia felt her resolve wavering. Drenched from head to toe, Ethan still managed to look irritatingly handsome, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and a stubborn set to his jaw that matched her own. "I never asked for your help," she said, lowering the shotgun. "I'm perfectly capable of handling my own repairs." Ethan retrieved his hammer, wiping it dry on his soaked pants. "With all due respect, Miss Lawson, you've been up there twice already, and that roof is still leaking. Someone needed to do it properly." "And you think that someone is you?" "I don't see anyone else volunteering." He gestured toward the darkening sky. "Storm's getting worse. I can finish tomorrow." "You most certainly will not." Olivia crossed her arms. "I appreciate the sentiment, Mr. Vance, but I didn't come west to be coddled." "No, you came west completely unprepared for frontier life." The moment the words left his mouth, Ethan seemed to regret them. "I didn't mean—" "I know exactly what you meant." Olivia turned to go inside, then paused. As much as she hated to admit it, the man was soaked to the bone on her account. "You should come in and dry off before you catch your death. I've got coffee on the stove." Ethan hesitated, then nodded, removing his hat and following her inside. He stopped at the threshold, conscious of the mud and water dripping from his clothes. "Just stay there," Olivia instructed, disappearing into her bedroom. She returned with a blanket and handed it to him. "Remove those wet boots and wrap yourself in this. I'll fetch the coffee." While Olivia busied herself in the kitchen, Ethan took stock of her home. Despite the leaky roof, she had transformed the once abandoned cabin into something resembling a proper home. Curtains framed the windows, a small bookshelf held volumes of poetry and literature, and a writing desk sat in the corner with letters half-written. "How did you know about my roof?" Olivia asked as she returned with 2 steaming cups. Ethan accepted the coffee gratefully. "Frank at the general store mentioned you'd been asking about roofing materials. Said you couldn't afford to hire help after buying those breeding hens." Olivia's cheeks flushed. The last thing she wanted was the town discussing her financial situation. My personal affairs aren't for public consumption. It's a small town, Miss Lawson. People talk. Ethan sipped the coffee, its warmth spreading through his chilled body. And people care. Is that what you're doing? Caring? I'm being neighborly. Olivia studied him over the rim of her cup. 3 roof repairs in 1 month goes beyond neighborly, Mr. Vance. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the room in harsh white light before plunging them back into the soft glow of the oil lamps. The subsequent thunder rattled the windows. You can't stay out in this, Olivia said reluctantly. The spare room isn't much, but it's dry. At least, drier than most places in this house. Ethan shook his head. I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition if it's my invitation, Olivia interrupted. Besides, I'd rather not have your death on my conscience. A hint of a smile tugged at Ethan's lips. You have a peculiar way of showing gratitude, Miss Lawson. And you have a peculiar way of respecting boundaries, Mr. Vance. She set her cup down with a decisive clink. The offer stands until the storm passes. Take it or leave it. As the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of abating. Olivia found herself seated across from Ethan at her small kitchen table, a kerosene lamp between them as they shared a simple meal of stew and bread. Why did you really come west? Ethan asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Olivia considered the question. Freedom, I suppose. In Boston, my future was predetermined marriage to a suitable gentleman, a house filled with children, endless social obligations. She stirred her stew absently. When my uncle left me this property, it felt like providence. Freedom to struggle alone, freedom to succeed or fail on my own term, she corrected. My father lost everything in bad investments before he died. My mother and I were left dependent on the charity of relatives. I swore I'd never be in that position again. Understanding dawned in Ethan's eyes. So when I come around fixing things, it feels like charity, like I'm failing. Ethan set down his spoon. It's not charity, Miss Lawson. It's community. Out here, no one survives alone. Is that what we are? A community? We could be, he said softly. Before Olivia could respond, a tremendous crash came from outside. They both rushed to the window to see that the old oak tree beside the barn had split, one massive branch crushing the corner of the structure. My hens, Olivia gasped, already reaching for her shawl. You can't go out there. Ethan grabbed her arm. It's not safe. Those hens are my livelihood, she insisted, pulling away. I have to check on them. Before he could protest further, Olivia was out the door, racing through the downpour toward the damaged barn. Ethan cursed under his breath and followed, catching up to her as she struggled with the barn door, which had been jammed by the fallen branch. Together, they managed to force it open enough for Olivia to slip inside. The lantern she carried revealed that while the corner of the roof had collapsed, the hen roosts on the opposite side appeared untouched. The birds clucked nervously, but all seemed unharmed. Thank goodness, Olivia breathed, checking each bird carefully. We need to reinforce this wall before more of the roof gives way, Ethan said, assessing the damage. There's lumber in the corner. We can brace it temporarily until the storm passes. For the next hour, they worked side by side, Olivia holding the lantern and passing tools while Ethan constructed makeshift supports. Despite the cold and wet, there was a rhythm to their collaboration that felt natural, as if they'd been working together for years rather than hours. When they finally returned to the house, both were drenched and exhausted. Olivia stoked the fire while Ethan hung their soaked outer garments to dry. You're shivering, he observed, noticing how her hands trembled as she arranged kindling. I'm fine, she insisted, though her teeth chattered audibly. Without a word, Ethan retrieved the blanket he'd used earlier and wrapped it around her shoulders, his hands lingering briefly. You should change into something dry. Olivia looked up at him, suddenly aware of their proximity. For a moment they stood frozen, the air between them charged with something more powerful than the lightning outside. Thank you, she said finally, stepping back, for helping with the barn. That's what neighbors do, he replied, his voice rougher than before. Olivia retreated to her bedroom, emerging later in a dry dress, her damp hair braided over one shoulder. She found Ethan seated by the fire, staring into the flames. "The spare room is ready whenever you'd like to retire," she told him, taking a seat in the chair opposite. Ethan nodded but made no move to leave. "Your uncle's place has good bones. It just needs some care." "Like a new roof?" Olivia asked wryly. "Among other things." He turned to face her. "I could teach you, how to make the repairs yourself, if that's what you want." Olivia considered his offer. "Why would you do that?" "Because I respect your independence," he said simply. "But I also don't want to see you struggle when I could help." A faint smile crossed Olivia's face. "That's considerate of you." "I have my moments." As the storm continued to rage outside, they talked long into the night. Ethan told her about his ranch, how he'd built it from nothing after returning from the war, with little more than the clothes on his back. Olivia shared stories of her life in Boston, of poetry readings and concerts she'd attended, of dreams deferred. It was well past midnight when Olivia finally showed him to the spare room. "Good night, Mr. Vance," she said, lingering in the doorway. "Ethan," he corrected gently. "If we're to be proper neighbors, you might as well use my given name." "Ethan," she echoed, testing the name on her tongue. "Then you must call me Olivia." "Olivia," he said, and something in the way he pronounced each syllable made her heart skip. "Sleep well." Morning brought clear skies and a changed landscape. The storm had left branches strewn across Olivia's property, but the makeshift repairs to both the house roof and barn had held. Olivia found Ethan already outside, surveying the damage in the early light. "It could have been worse," he commented as she approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Olivia handed him one. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to us," he corrected, accepting the cup. "You're handier than you give yourself credit for." Over the next few weeks, true to his word, Ethan began teaching Olivia the basics of property maintenance. They started with the roof, Ethan showing her how to identify damaged shingles and replace them properly. Though she was nervous on the high slope at first, Olivia proved a quick study, her determination outweighing her fear. "You're a natural," Ethan commented one afternoon as they finished securing the last section. "Most city folks wouldn't take to this kind of work so readily." Olivia wiped sweat from her brow, secretly pleased with the compliment. "I'm not most city folks." "No," he agreed, his gaze lingering on her face. "You certainly aren't." Their lessons continued through the summer, fixing fence posts, reinforcing the barn, even basic carpentry for the furniture Olivia needed but couldn't afford to buy. With each project, the initial tension between them softened, replaced by a companionable ease that surprised them both. It was during a trip to town for supplies that Olivia first noticed the whispers. As she and Ethan loaded lumber onto his wagon, Mrs. Peterson from the millinery shop exchanged meaningful glances with the banker's wife. "Pay them no mind," Ethan advised, noting her discomfort. "Small towns thrive